And welcome everybody to God in the Timber podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Scott. Pull up a seat. Let's talk a bit. And welcome back to another week of God in the Timber podcast. This week we are going over John 5. And I'll be the first one to tell you, John 5 has always been a struggle for me to read. I don't know if it's because of the words or that they use in this, but it's always been a struggle for me to actually read. I do like the beginning of the story. I love the whole story, but the beginning of the story is what really I've used and preached on before. But before we get into that, today I am actually headed to the bow shop. Me and Steve-O is headed to the bow shop just to have some fun before season comes. I've dialed in my darting. I actually need to put a new sight tape on my darting to figure out where I'm going to be falling at. I sighted it in over the spring, and somehow I have changed something on my setup, and now I was shooting low and to the left, but now I got her sighted back in. I just got to figure out where my sight tape falls. I use a HHA nitrates, and I was sitting at a 52 sight tape, and I think yesterday I was at a 50, so going to have some fun here in a little bit. We're actually leaving here. I'm recording this podcast right now at 3:01 p.m. And he gets off work at 3, so about 30 minutes from now he'll be at his house, and we will be headed to the bow shop. Snipes Outdoors in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. This is not a plug for them, but if you are in Northwest Alabama and you want to get a gun or some camouflage or pretty much anything that you could do in the great outdoors, head on over there to Snipes Outdoors and tell Gentry that I sent you over there. Really good people, and he will get you taken care of. But I guess you could say the campfire story we will go with today is sighting in this bow was insanely easy. I've had a lot of bows in my life and a lot of sights in my life, and this ain't a plug because I don't get no money off of it. But the HHA nitrates was by far the easiest sight I have ever sighted in. It is a single pin sight. I decided to go to a single pin sight this year instead of a multi-pin vertical sight, just due to I wanted to try it. I've always said I wanted a single pin sight, so I decided to try it this year. And let me tell you how easy it was to sight in. Most of your sights today, you have to put a piece of tape up there, and you take your shot at 20, you dial it in at 20, you take a pin and make a mark. Then you back out to 30, you shoot, you take a shot, you make a mark. Then 40, 50, 60, however far you want to, and you keep making marks on this tape. Well, then you got to take the tape off and make sure you're lined up right. Then set it down beside a tape, like a metal tape or a plastic tape, and sit there and like, oh, well, my 20's dead on, my 30's a hair bit off, or my 20, 30, and 40 is dead on, but then my 50 and 60's dead, I'm just way off, so, and it's a headache. So with this nitrates, you sight it in at 20, and then if you're man enough to take the step back, or woman enough to take the step back straight off the rip from 20 to 60, all power to you. But I did walk it back. And it has numbers on this test wheel. So by the time I got to 60 yards, I was like, okay, I need it. I'm sitting at a 50 now. Say, well, my first sight tape was at a 52. So just sit there and say, all right, well, I'm at a 52. You take that tape off, you go over to your tape and you pull out 52 and you throw it on there and you're ready to go. Like, it was nice. I really like that. And I'm just glad that I went to that one this year. I was looking at other ones, but I feel like that one was just the one that fit my scheme. I get, for better words, my scheme this year. It's what I wanted. It wasn't too expensive, and that's what I went with, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. What brings that up is we sighted in Steve-O's bow last week, like fully sighted it in, and it was just a headache. It didn't take us too awful long to sight it in. It took us more time to find the sight tape, and we still didn't get the sight tape that matched perfect than it did for us to sight the bow in. Like, it was crazy. But we have fun doing this. If you hear me yawning a lot, I've been up for a while today. I actually had a chiropractor appointment, and my back is still killing me. But it's all good. It's all good in the neighborhood. So let's get over to John 5:1, and we'll go for a little bit, and then we'll stop, and you know how everything goes. Y'all know, y'all been here long enough. Y'all know how these podcasts flow now. John 5:1. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there in Jerusalem by the sheep gate, a pool, which in Hebrew is called Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for moving water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well from whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him laying there, and knew that he had been in that condition for a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I'm coming, another one steps down in front of me." Jesus said to him, "Rise up, take your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed, and walked. And that day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, "It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed." He answered them, "He who made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk." So we are going to start right there. The so-called holy ones of this time, the so-called people, the people for the people, the Christians of that time, was mad at this guy for carrying a bed around. And like, my mind goes to, you can't tell me that they did not see this man outside the sheep gate at some time, and now they see him walking around, and the first thing they say is, "It's the Sabbath. You can't be doing that." And that's why it's hard now for a lot of people to come into a church, is because the stigma that they believe is around church, the ideology that they believe is around church, is that we all think we're perfect. And you can come to my church anytime, and my pastor and a lot of us will straight up tell you we're not perfect. We serve a perfect God, but we are not perfect ourselves. So this is where a lot of people, in my opinion, goes back to where there is Christians out there, or so-called Christians, I'm not going to call them Christians, that believe that they're better than everybody. And we're not. We was all born into sin, and we're all going to face sin in our life, and we're all going to fall short of the glory of God. We know that. But instead of casting judgment onto somebody that's not there yet, that's not in that walk with Christ yet, how about we show a little bit of compassion? How about we show them just a hair bit of love, and maybe that would change their mind. Maybe that's what they're looking for at that moment, is for love, till they can be like, you know what, this changed me. So let's go to church. Let's try church. Let's go do X, Y, Z with the church. So instead of casting judgment and being like, hey, you can't be doing that, how about we show them a little bit of compassion, is where I'm getting with that. But I want you to think about this for a second. You have all these sick people, which is a lot like our church. I'm not saying our church is like physically sick, but there's a lot of broken people in there. Say every Sunday, the preacher told everybody to line up on the back wall and said, the first one who makes it to the altar, you got everlasting life. Like, you win the prize. That's why I see this. Like, I don't know if I misinterpret this or not, but there is a lot of debate is if this was a real angel that comes down from heaven and stirs it up, but I'm not going to get into that. But just imagine your pastor gets up there on Sunday and he's like, all right, we're about to do altar call. Everybody line up in the back. Whenever I hit 3, whoever makes it to this altar first is guaranteed to have everlasting life. You would see some of the best/worst fights that you've ever seen in your life. Like, I grew up watching UFC, and there's been some pretty mean fights in the UFC. So just imagine the amounts of people running over people. There'll be some kicks in that. There would be some screaming, some hollering, some biting. It would be insane. I don't know why my mind always thought of that, but let's continue. Then they asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who he was, for Jesus had withdrawn a multitude being in that place. Afterwards, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. So this guy didn't go out after being made well and just start automatically living a sinful life. Jesus finds him in the temple and tells him, hey, you've been made well, sin no more, because something bad, if you do, something bad happen to you. Something bad will come to you. So then the man leaves now that he knows who he is, and he tells the Jews it was Jesus. So right here where we start getting into some real good persecution is what I'm not saying real good persecution like it's a good thing, but this is the persecution that we start seeing how much hatred from the Jews is coming. It says, for this reason the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath. But Jesus answered them, saying, my Father has been working until now, and I have been working. Therefore the Jews sought all the more to kill him, because he not only broke the Sabbath, but also that God said that God was his Father, making him equal with God. Then Jesus answered and said to them, most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son also does in a like manner. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all things that he himself does. And he will show him greater works than these, that you may marvel. For as the Father raises the dead and gives life to them, even so the Son gives life to whom he will. This is foreshadowing to Lazarus. For the Father judges no one, but has committed all judgment to the Son, that all should honor the Son just as they honor the Father. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. I think of my own relationship with my dad right here. I always wanted to imitate my dad on certain aspects of life. So I love the part where it says in verse 19, then Jesus answered and said to them, most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of himself but what he sees the Father do. For whatever he does, the Son also does in a like manner. I have copied my dad on so many things in my life, from my work ethic that I was raised up with, in a lot of the ways that I raise my children is the same way my dad raised me. There is some little different kinks and twerks and stuff like that I do with my kids that my dad didn't do with me. But yeah, I'm a mirror image of my father in a lot of ways. So this what Jesus is telling them here is I'm only doing the things that my father already does. So let's move on to 24. Most assuredly I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me has everlasting life and shall not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. Most assuredly I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live. For as the Father has life in himself, and has granted the Son to have life in himself, and has given him authority to execute judgment also, because he is the Son of Man. Do not marvel at this, for the hour is coming in which all who are in the grave will hear his voice and come forth, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of condemnation. I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge, and as my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own will, but the will of the Father who sent me. So once again, we're going back to Jesus is telling them, hey, I can only do the stuff that my Father allows me to do, and my Father has given me the powers to do judgment, righteous judgment. That's the key. I think that's the key thing here is righteous judgment, which we know if it's coming through Jesus is righteous judgment. He can raise the dead, but right here, he keeps saying, the hour is coming. The hour is coming. The hour is coming. A lot of people reading this is like, what hour is he talking about? We're still a long ways in the Bible from the crucifixion right now, from the book of John into the crucifixion. But he's already foreshadowing the hour is coming where all this is going to come to a head, pretty much is what it's saying. And whenever that hour comes, the judgment happens. Like he dies for our sin. Like he takes all the judgment from us. So if we continue on, 31, if I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. Therefore, there is another who bears witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesses of me is true. You have sent to John, and he was borne witness of the truth. Yet I do not receive testimony from man, but I say these things that you may be saved. He was the burning and shining lamp, and you are willing for a time to rejoice in his light. But I have a greater witness than John. For the works which the Father has given me to finish, the very works that I do, bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me. And the Father himself who sent me has testified of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time, nor seen his form, but you do not have his words abiding in you, because whom he sent, him you do not believe. You search the scriptures. This is stepping on toes right now, because we search the scriptures all the time instead of abiding in Jesus. You search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and these that are which testify me. But you are not willing to come to me that you may have life. I'm here to tell you folks, you take this book, if you're not taking this book and applying this book to your life, where you're actually you're being transformed by Jesus, this ain't nothing but a book of words. An atheist can tell you this book probably better than most theological scholars, because they studied the book to disprove this book. So right here we get Jesus talking about John. He says that they believed John's testimony. They believed when John was saying all these things. Even though they had their doubts, a lot of them still believed John. But John needs to step to the back burner because Jesus is here. And you love John, why don't you love me for doing these things? Type what I get out of this. I do not receive, 41, I do not receive honor from men, but I know that you do not have the love of God in you. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe me, who receives honor from one another, and do not seek the honor that comes from the only God? Do not think that I shall accuse you to be the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moses, so Mosaic law, in which you trust. For if you believe Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe in his writings, how would you believe my words? So he is saying that Mosaic law is real. We know that. But if you believe Moses, why don't you believe in the one who's come to disprove Mosaic law, to recompense Mosaic law? I wish I could break that down a lot more. It's the reason I guess I have such a hard time with John 5 is it's pretty much cut and dry. He's pretty much saying, and it's hard for, as somebody that likes to add on to stuff, not add on to stuff, but like interpret stuff different. It's a hard book of the Bible to interpret. It's just, the fact, it's just a real hard part of the Bible to interpret because it's really cut and dry. So, thank y'all for another week. I hope y'all have a blessed week this week, and we will see y'all next week.